This is Brett Bumeter, and I'm here with Warren Whitlock, and this is the Zeta Mining Show. It's episode 31, and this week Warren and I are headed to the podcast movement in Dallas, Texas. So we're going to talk some tips, tricks, and strategies for going to a conference. We go to them all the time, but this one we're a little extra interested in for a bunch of reasons. Partly because we want to be inspired and see some new things from the podcast community, but we met at the genesis of this show at the Podcast Expo back in 2006 in Ontario, California. And from my perspective, I'm kind of hoping to see lightning strike twice. And that's part of the reason why I'm headed to the podcast movement. Got in early.
There's a really good chance that you may meet me this weekend.
Right, yeah, there's a good chance that I might meet Warren again this weekend. so that's kind of where we're coming from today. How are you doing, Warren?
I'm doing great. I am. I'm ready to travel, have some fun, meet some new people, and love doing this subject. We've done it about talking about other events at other times on other shows, and always a big hit. People love the what to do when you go to the show thing, so it's a fun one to do.
It is, and we're not the only ones out there, and we don't aim to be. I'd encourage people to check out the Twitter feed, check out the hashtag PM14. Of course, this is also one of the tips for the event, but there's a few other people that are sharing some tips on traveling to the conference nobody knows at all, but it's a good way to get to know some of the other people that are going and get some fresh perspective too. So that's one of the first tips. Go check out some of the other shows on the same topic, but we're going to kind of break up this segment into 3 parts, and we're going to kind of cover what you should do before you go to the show to prepare for it, and then we'll talk a little bit about what to do during the show, and then we'll get into some of the things for after. So what's starting with the before the show activities, what do you need to do to prepare for the show? What do you do, Warren, in general?
Well, actually, you just reminded me of one that we had talked about recently, but I don't think we had in the notes to cover today. Where I met you was a luncheon that I went to that I had no idea why I was going to it or whatever. I was looking for anything other than, regular sessions. In fact, I believe I didn't have a ticket to the sessions, and the idea was find anything to do to use up some more time and see something a little bit different, and then I got sat next to you, and the rest is history.
That's
and
right.
So thinking about that as this thing's coming up is expect some serendipity, and that isn't going to happen if you go stand there and wait for somebody to come up and see what part of the wall you're attached to. Right now, there's a guy planning a Sunday night get-together. I'm not sure about getting to it because I've got a plane leaving. I know you're going. And what I know about the guy for sure, and some of the work I've been doing, is that he's out there anxious to get a count on how many people are coming. His way of doing it was to ask for $5. Some people want an RSVP. A comment, share it on social media, whatever it is. You pick an event like that and you become a supporter. By the time you get there, the guy running the event, the side event, evening event, whatever, is thinking of you as one of his heroes that's helped out. And frankly, I know when I've done those kind of things, I don't care whether it's somebody that has 2 followers or 2 million followers. They're getting the word out. They're helping me. I love them for it. So look at the people you want to meet, which again, let's get back to the basics. Make a list of the people you really want to meet, and then go ahead and do something so you've done them a favor before you ever meet them.
Yeah, no, so and through our notes, we talked about keep your list of people that you want to meet somewhat reasonable. Don't come up with a list of 150 people on Twitter that you really have to meet during the conference. Narrow it down to your top 3 or 4 or 5 people that you really want to meet. You'll meet more, and that's fine. And you might plan to meet a few additional people as well. But focus in on a top few, just so that you've got somebody that you get out there, make plans, hit them up through instant messaging or Twitter or something, so that you actually run into them plan a little bit how you're going to talk to them. You mentioned Lou, I believe his name is Lou. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, and I'm from the Midwest and notorious for mispronouncing everything, including our own show's name. But I believe it's Mangello or Mangelo.
Yeah.
I've met him before. He runs a Disney podcast. I think I might have met him back at Podcast Expo way back when. I don't know him terribly well, but I recognize him and his face, and so I'm hoping to get to know him a little bit better. He's putting on a dinner Sunday night at 7, and you're right, he's charging a $5 Eventbrite thing, and that's mostly just to make sure that the people that say they're going to go are really going to be there. It's common with meetups and things like that to charge just a nominal few bucks to make sure people really show up. But plan to meet some people ahead of time. Look for other dinners, events, luncheons. Some of these will show up on Twitter. They'll be ad hoc, or look for people that are going as a group and tag along with that group and go. You can meet some very interesting.
And it's not that hard to put on something if it's an impromptu thing. In fact, my personal feeling is I prefer to go to a dinner that has 3, 4, 5 people rather than 47, where you're only meeting the few people that you're around, and sometimes in those large groups you get setting by the dud of the group. That's usually what they say when they send people to sit by me. And it's a boring conversation, or you have nothing in common, or you just don't hit it off for whatever reason. Or you sit by somebody who's supposed to be popular, and they're out trying to meet all 47 people in the group. So it's just as successful as to set up your own thing. At the NMX New Media Expo this year, the night before, since I'm in Vegas and it was easy, I knew people would come, and I knew where the locations were. Asked somebody if they were around, if they wanted to go to lunch. I knew they were around because they had just tweeted that they'd landed in Vegas. I knew that it was another 36 hours till the show started, so I said, "Hey, what are you doing at lunchtime tomorrow?" And we planned something. As it turned out, there was some discrepancy as to what the start time was. I lost and showed up an hour late. When I got there were 27 people having a great time. I came in, I was the last person to order, so other tip on those kind of things, watch the check.
Yep. Group check.
I have to say, the good people of NMX that got together, those 27 people, ended up putting enough money in that I added a little to the tip, but my burger was free. So they were really they were a good crowd. So that part worked out just fine. But the idea was, all it was that I was talking to these people about this event, and at the end I had to think for a moment. Yeah, I chose the place. I chose the idea of it being a lunch. I suggested 1, and they liked noon. But some marvelous conversations. Another couple of weeks ago, I went to an event. There were 10 vendors displaying things. That, to me, was a very important part of what they were doing, because those vendors were all startups, and they were all showing what their new idea was. Got to the very first one, which happened to be a Twitter utility I really like, Managed Flitter, and ended up talking to the guy for an hour. The rest of the booths were taken down by the time I got done talking to him. And after the initial shock of, oh crap, I didn't get to see the other ones, I realized that conversation was just fantastic. The deal we made helped me get enough of a monetary return on it that it felt like it was well worth the time. But in addition to that, I can't think of anybody or anything I could have been doing during that time that would have been a better use of my time for the connection and the ideas we were exchanging. So, made a new friend with a vendor I know and like, and now very much trust.
Yeah, no, and that's a good point. I mean, I think it's important, and I attempt to do this for every show I go to proactively write down, list it, the things that you're looking to get out of the show, such that when you go and you're in those serendipitous situations where you happen to meet somebody, you can say, "Hi, my name is Brett, and I'm looking to meet some inspiring people to help me make my show more efficient or more effective." Think of those things so that you can tell them in almost your elevator pitch, not pitching your show or pitching whatever it is that you do, just pitching your goals so that they associate what you're looking for with your name and your face. And that way, if they happen to turn to the next person to meet them and they share a similar goal, they might be able to introduce you, or maybe an hour later or 2 hours later. I had a little running event. I like to run a lot, so sometimes when I go to these shows, not all the time, I'll go running one morning, and sometimes I'll set up a little impromptu Twitter meetup or something for other people that like to run, as opposed to going to the hotel gym and everybody not talking to each other, not seeing each other, going different times, an early morning type thing. But I've met a number of people that way, and through those I've had some ability to introduce them to other people later, and vice versa. But come up with some goals and look for those events. That way, when you get there, it's not just tell them your life story, which may not be pertinent to anything that's going on, or get lost in the weeds of getting to know them too well about the things that aren't important to you, and not well enough for the things that are important to both of you. So,
yeah, well, it's funny. I used to go to events. I started going to Comdex back in the '80s, and I showed up and met with a friend who I'd never met face to face. We made a deal. We were sharing a room, talk all night about things. Was one of my best friends, but it was all by telephone. Lived in Anchorage, and I was in Southern California. We met in Vegas. I picked him up from the airport. We went and stayed together. We had meals together. We had a great time. Every time we went into the show floor, I made any excuse I could to get separated from him and go off by myself, because that's what I liked to do it on the show floor. I've now come around to thinking that's not the only way to do it, and a lot more mature. That's over the last 20 years. Think about it different ways. I remember it almost came to him feeling insulted when I did this. And now when I go someplace, I know that it's a balance. And the reason I bring this up is I'm going to see you there. You're a good friend. I like to hang out with you. We could talk for hours, have a good time, but that's not why we're going to Dallas.
Right.
And so, but what a wonderful thing. The last time we were together, we were at a big party. I was lost. I was kind of looking for somebody. Found you. Always great to have a friendly face in the place. So nothing wrong with hanging out with friends, but there's some kind of balance. Make sure you're not, partying there. And I guess that goes for the general rules about partying.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much the always sober guy, so unless you talk about junk food, it's really, come to think of it, that's probably good too. I am taking a couple of protein bars with me this trip to avoid eating breakfast at the candy machine.
Yeah, and I eat a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in general, just flatbread and peanut butter and jelly, or peanut butter and honey or something like that. But I always pack a few extra before a trip like this, because my goal is to go there and meet people, learn things. It's not to go there and have to search out places to eat every time I turn around. So I like to always have a snack. A sandwich is a little more filling for me than a granola bar or something like that. I'll usually pack a few of those too. But every now and then you're in a crunch situation and you need some real food, something to fill you up a little bit more than a snack, and you're not always in a place where that's easy to do. You need to kind of plan for those meals a little bit, plan for where the breakfast events are, plan for where the lunch and dinner things are. But every now and then you got to expect you're going to miss one of those or two, and before you know it, you're in that danger zone. I'm a little hypoglycemic. Some people are fighting things with diabetes and different challenges. Know yourself, but be prepared to cover yourself too with a little food. There's times when I've been to places in Vegas during the larger shows where it's almost impossible to find a non-alcoholic drink. I don't mind alcohol myself, but there's times when you have to get rehydrated with something that doesn't have alcohol in it too. And sometimes in Vegas it's kind of hard to find those vending machines even where you can find a soda or a water that's not sold out. So
we planned that on purpose. No, I drink nothing but bottled water, and I am up against that on a regular basis myself, but always seems to work out. There's something to do. In the desert, you definitely want to have the water. Yeah, but you take care of yourself. Personally, even though I, don't drink myself, I think of it in terms of, like, why would I want to be wasting time going there, hang out with friends, and the the parties that we have are things I can't remember, and that's great. You know, if business is good, if you're meeting up with some friends, if that's the level that you're at and that's what you want to do, that's fine. And one of the nice thing about hanging out with some of those people is it's helped me let go of the idea I need to try to get X number of business cards, or, you know, make the best deal possible with a vendor, or get to 2 sessions at once. So there's one that'll drive me crazy. I've got to be at this session or that. Oh, and I'm talking to somebody. Now I'll be standing talking to somebody and say, I need to get to the session. And I go, okay, fine. And I'm thinking of going to a session myself, and then I find somebody else and run into them. It's the nice thing is you get good at not going to the sessions. That actually becomes some of the best networking opportunity. But, you know, be mindful that somebody else wants to go to the session, or
right. Don't hold people up, or yep. And this show is going to be there's only one track for this particular show. There's lots of sessions, but there's only one track, so you won't have quite as much of people splitting like an NMX situation where there's 13 different tracks.
I see the mixed up agenda has mixed you up again. This particular show has multiple tracks.
Does it? Oh, I've missed that already. So I've got to.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a problem with the app. That's always a good thing to recommend the app, and we don't have enough time today to talk about problems with this particular app or any of them. The idea of having an app, I'll tell you what happens to me on a regular basis. Living in Vegas, going to a lot of events, big and small, CES especially. I'll get down to the parking and getting into CES is a major encounter on itself. And I'll get there and I'll pull out the phone, and assuming I do have a charge and it's working, I then realize that the details I need to get to the next party or event aren't in there, because they look fine on my screen at home, but when they got down to being an attachment to email or in the Eventbrite ticket app or whatever, or I can't remember which one it is. Is this a meetup group, an Eventbrite, the show app, or whatever? They've got a long way to come. And my favorite tool for that right now is Tempo AI. Tempo. I'm trying out a bunch of them. Calendars are getting really good on the phone, and I think the idea of having proprietary is going away. And so just, that's my ad for Tempo right now. But the idea is I can use other apps, and then still when I get to the phone, know that I can hit Tempo, and somehow it magically remembers to get the email address of the person I'm trying to find, the actual address, one click over to the maps, and even a button. I'm running late, so I push the button and it sends a text to the other person I'm meeting with. So yeah, plan that part of it out, but then let that go, because the most important meeting you have may be with somebody you didn't expect to run into.
Yeah, and I would say also, don't become reliant on the technology, because at some point or another, and it might be a long point, the Wi-Fi will fail. You won't be able to get a signal somewhere. Your device will go, will have dead battery, or whatever the case may be. Don't
of course,
base your device missing people either.
That may be the best time to find somebody else in the same situation, and do what you can to help them or talk to them. Oh, you're trying to find session 3. I was trying to find session 2. Oh, this one's canceled, or this one doesn't. I can't find it. I don't know where the room is. That might be the person that you need to be there to meet. So
exactly.
Let's be woo-woo about this, but things happen for a reason.
Yep. Go with the flow. Take it easy. Don't get stressed out over things when they go wrong at the show, because then you become that person that's having a nervous breakdown because the session was late, or your Wi-Fi hasn't worked for 3 hours when everybody else does, or whatever it is.
Right. I call it getting in show mode, and as a speaker it happens all the time. As a promoter it definitely happens, where I'm talking to my best friend, and then we go down to the hotel where he's putting on a show, and it's funny because 50-75% of the time they're as calm as can be. You're sitting there talking to them in the hotel lobby or whatever, between gigs or at night or whatever, but there's certain times of the day they just become, totally nervous about the thing. And again, they're the guy putting on the show. It's their job on the line. But also with speakers, I have to admit I have shown up late for a panel I'm supposed to be on. I one time got into a Twitter war with somebody trying to drive to a CES session I was late for. Somebody said, "How dare you tell us that you're pumping gas?" I'm at an intersection. Stop! I can't do anything about it. And so I tweeted back and said, "I have 200 people waiting for me. How about you?"
Right.
There's a reason why I tweeted this. And of course, I got there. They'd gone on without me. I took my chair. I missed the first 5 minutes of introductions. We had a good session, and life went on. I made a note to make sure I was there an hour early the next time, because even though that's a boring hour, that's something you can't get caught in traffic when you're standing there. But whatever happens, come 3 days later, it's all going to be over with. Which brings us to what to do after.
Right. So one of the things that, and this is kind of a transition to during and after, a lot of people still carry business cards. Not everybody. Don't get bent out of shape if they do or if they don't. But work to connect with people however they do it. If it's business cards, take their card. If it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, connect with them how you can. But a couple things that often come up. If you take somebody's business card, and let's say you scan it in and connect with them or whatever, don't throw it away on the floor. It's just kind of mean. If you're going to get rid of the card, and I don't keep people's business cards. I scan them in. I get connected with them usually while, that night after I've met them, or within a day or two. I try to do it, but I usually try not to lug a pile of business cards and flyers and stuff like that back with me. I scan them all in and get rid of them. But I usually try to discreetly, back at the hotel room typically, get rid of the cards afterwards so I don't have to carry around. But I find it sets the wrong tone and sometimes upsets people when they find their business card laying on the floor afterwards. Sometimes they know who threw it down, sometimes they don't. But be polite about how you manage people's contact information and
how about don't litter? That would be a good enough reason right there. Actually, I was thinking that's not that big of a problem, Brett. But then I got reviewing what's happened to me. When I started scanning cards and thought I'd had it down to where I could scan a card on the fly, and I had a GPS thing, and I think it was Card Scan I was using. And no, it was Evernote Hello. And I could take a picture of the person at the same time. The old version was the only good quality of the original Evernote Hello. I've now fixed it quite a bit. But and that isn't available. But it would take 4 pictures and then
Whoa, I've lost you, Warren, or it's frozen up. Hang on, let me, are you there, or did we lose you? Well, I think Warren might be down at the moment. I'm going to send him a quick text message to see if we can get him back on. Oh, and hey, you're back.
So I scanned somebody's card, and they grabbed it back. They were, I guess conserving their cards or thinking I was going to throw it away or whatever. So just the idea of that, yeah, of course, you treat people with respect like that. And the thing I really am impressed with is if you meet me and I get something like an email, a tweet, whatever from you in real time, either that same day or in actual real time, because so many of the people you meet, you never hear from them. And it used to be expected, but I didn't like it. And that I'd go to a show. I used to go to Comdex with a big stack of business cards, give my card to everybody. I was trying to, get a lot more knowledge about that industry. Didn't mind getting the junk mail. This is pre-internet. Just pass out the card to everybody. I would say on average, I've heard from them never. And the ones I did hear from were rarely the same people that were at the booth. And today, if I go to someplace and somebody says hello about, was great to meet you at the show, and I didn't actually meet them, I'm immediately turned off. I don't want to do business with the people. I'm not saying gonna be that prejudiced, but that's the feeling I get in that instance. I don't want to give anybody that feeling. So while I don't carry cards, I immediately as fast as I can, get an email to them. I then go to the trouble to make sure that we're connected somehow on social media and give them every chance. And still, even vendors trying to sell me something, I'd say it's about 1/4 take the time to do anything resembling a personal connection. You know, it was great hearing your story about the old days, which, you know, pretty much guarantee, if you want to fool me, send me an email saying, great hearing you talk about the old days, Warren, because Warren will.
Right. No, I think one of the things that strikes me, and you mentioned real-time connections, when you're, you know, going back to like the dinner, lunch, breakfast scenarios, I think that's a good time for a real-time connection. You're possibly waiting for food. You're maybe taking turns talking to people. That's not a bad time to connect with people on Twitter and saying, having lunch with A, B, C, D, and E, or whoever it is, and maybe or taking a picture and getting people to tag it. It's, you know, there's a few different ways to approach it. Everybody's got their own style, their own preferred networks. I love Google for the circles. I'm not as good at managing my lists on Twitter as I used to be. You know, I kind of float in and out myself of different ways to manage these different areas. But I think it's kind of important to get those real-time connections when the opportunity's there, so that you've got that, you know, that base to build upon later, and then you start to recognize them a little bit more, putting the face to the name, putting the face to the Twitter user ID or whatever the case may be.
I'll go back to when you and I met. There's some large lags in us getting to become friends. You know, we get along great at first. I think what it was like another show. My recollection is there was at least once during the show after we went to lunch together where I come up to you and was like, I think I know this guy. Who is he? And you know, and then sometime later when I bump into you at another show, you know, sometimes it can take a long time to do that. But on the other hand, crowded CES party, met a guy who's now one of my best friends, closest contacts. I talk to a lot, and you know, we spent 10 minutes talking at a very crowded, very noisy event. And I would have lost contact with him other than we have mutual friends, got connected on Facebook, and before I know it, I'm hearing from him on a regular basis. And he was somebody that followed up. And so, you know, and it's enriched my life to know him. So, and I always think like there's probably 50 of those people at any event. And if I meet one, it's great. If I meet 10, it's wonderful. Five or eight of them will go away, but you know, and so I've been guilty of going for the quantity. Right now, I'm saying go for the quality. And if it turns out that you and I come up with a great discussion and miss half of a day because of it, that'll be okay too. Although, you know, you're on notice now. I'm going to be trying to get out of that, and which means it's your cue to say, Warren, shut up and let's go meet some more people.
Right.
So do that. If you're coming to the podcast movement, please come up and say hi. Because if I don't know you yet, it's my loss. So I really want to get to know anyone who hears this, and same with any of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Same thing. I will be wearing toe shoes. Just got a new Batman pair in today. Sometimes that helps people recognize me, although there are definitely a few other people that wear them. If you happen to talk to people about toe shoes, I'll warn you ahead of time, they tend to talk too much about toe shoes. But it's one of those things. I'd leave you with the advice of try to find some way where people can recognize you. Maybe it's a shirt, maybe it's a hat, a bag, maybe you're dressed up like a pickle. And I say that just because the podcast Pickle was one of the things from the Podcast Expo days, and one of the promoters and founders of this show did that. He spent a few $1,000s on a pickle costume, dressed somebody up in it for his business, and you know, it's some of the best money he ever spent on advertising was this $3,000 pickle suit. It'll be at the show probably, so look for the pickle and get a picture taken with the pickle. It's famous. But find something where people can recognize you or see you or spot you, or because it's not easy coming out of social media to then meet people in person and match up, you know, a 50 pixel by 50 pixel little headshot or symbol or logo with an actual person. And you know, it takes time for us to make those connections and cement them in where we can recognize them. So if you're trying to meet somebody for lunch, give something descriptive as opposed to, you know, something that's not. Try to, you know, whatever the case may be, help them find you or ask them for something that'll help you find them. And it can make a big difference. It can also be a bit of an icebreaker, talking about whatever it is that helps set you apart from the crowd a bit. So I think we're getting kind of close to the end of the tips and things like that. I'm flying in, you're flying in. I'd mentioned to people, I've met some great people over the years on the flights themselves. It doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes with these conferences, people happen to be coming in from similar hubs or things like that. And so you might start your networking early, and you might start it late. You might try to share a ride to or from the airport and use that as a chance to talk to some people, because, you know, let's face it, we're going to a conference to meet people, not to have a good conversation with a cab driver or the rental checkout lady who's giving you the car, or whatever the case may be. You know, it's about the people going that you're, you know, that's the reason why you're going. So look for those opportunities. Check the Twitter feed, and you might find somebody sitting close to you. Any last tips from you, Warren?
No, I think you want to know any more, you come and find me at a show. We've been talking about Podcast Expo. Podcast movement. It's true for any place you go. If you go to a big show, come into Vegas, going to a show, it's a good chance you'll run into me. So let's meet up, let's connect, and please tweet me. I'm that guy that's on Twitter all the time.
That's right. At Warren Whitlock. You can find me at Brett Bum on Twitter, and you can find our show here on YouTube, youtube.com/ZetaMining or ZetaMining.com. We are moving into iTunes. I'm still converting some files over, so for those of you looking for us on iTunes, we're getting there. I've got some great advice from people already in the podcast community on some of that. I appreciate that very much, and we will see you next week, probably after the Podcast Movement show, and we'll go from there. Hope everybody has a safe trip, and we will talk to you soon.